Hello, hello. We're live. Say hello, Steph.
Hi. I got butterflies.
You've done this before.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember how nervous I was on your stream
Yeah.
in the beginning?
You always do until you get used to it, but you'll be fine. We've got 5 people on at the moment. Who we got? I think Peg, Karu. Hi, guys. But yeah, since our channel just started, we don't have a lot. So we thought we'd keep it very simple, just keep us on screen. And we posted a couple of, a call out for some questions, maybe to start off with a Q&A based on the videos we've uploaded so far. So we've been uploading videos for a couple of months. And people have, you know, we've talked about a few things related to relationships and couples and things like that. So people got a sense of us, how we talk, how we think and things like that. So it was interesting to see people's questions, what they asked. But first, before we get on to the questions, why did you want to or agree to start a channel together?
I think mostly because they just looked a lot of fun. Because obviously while I was living with you, I saw you make videos and I saw you do your streams. And I think especially your streams always looked like a lot of fun. So I was very easily persuaded, I think. Also because in the past, I used to have a channel myself. So I have some experience with it and I used to have a fun time with it. So...
now everyone's going to go looking for your channel, babe.
No, I've got all my videos are private. Because now it's like embarrassing to look back.
Apologies, I'm still on the last bits of my cold or whatever the hell I had, so...
Yeah, he's coughing all day.
You never got it.
No.
Yeah, the last few weeks, I thought you would have got it for sure, but... So, who's here? Yeah, Karu and Peg, I recognize. Hi-Ho Silver. Hello, new person. All right, let's... Oh, actually, just before, what were you hoping to show or to share from our channel? What were you hoping to do?
Well, I think our idea was really to show, however sad it sounds, that normal relationships are still possible, I guess. Because...
Look, every relationship's different. I wouldn't say ours is a typical relationship as well.
Yeah, by normal, I mean not how it is described in the Red Pill and in those Western countries, like in all those YouTube videos, the way they talk about relationships and stuff. I guess I think it's nice to show that, you know, you can still just have a nice relationship with someone or a good marriage with someone. And that is probably a specific group of people or that stuff happens in specific countries and it's not everywhere, you know? Like, people also still have normal relationships.
Yeah, and I suppose the train wrecks and the worst stuff gets all the clicks, and people like watching drama and watching... It's kind of... It's sad, as sad as it is, no one really tunes in to watch something stable and smooth and predictable and consistent. Everyone likes to watch... Everything was good until they crashed into the wall. Like, everyone wants to watch the car wreck.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. Like, we probably won't have as many viewers or subscribers as some of those other channels, because this might be boring to people. But, yeah, well, our life is kind of boring. So.
Well, I talk about this with Karu, where I think people aren't really looking for solutions. Yeah, Karu said something funny. He goes, why does Bob have the bigger chair and why is it a gaming chair if he's not a gamer? Unsubscribe.
Well, he just has the big... He just picked this chair and I picked this chair. I also got a new chair. But yeah, I know I have to learn about Karu that I take everything literally. So like I'm literally explaining to you why he's got a bigger chair, but that's obviously not what you meant. You meant to make a joke. But I take everything literally.
I have to have the bigger everything, babe. But even I remember, I don't know if Karu, he will remember, about a week ago, we were chatting in the car and Stephanie was there and Karu made a joke, and I understand that online, like metaphors and people, and you're so literal that you don't often get jokes.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying sometimes. Like I'm almost afraid when someone is about to make a joke, and I'm like, oh shit, I have to pay attention because I hope I get this joke.
Yeah. Yeah, you're very, but that's part of me. I find that endearing as well, but also a part of me that found it easy to get a sense of you as a person. You don't gaslight. You don't say one thing means another. I don't. I use metaphors in my streams, and I like talking about metaphors and philosophically equating A to B. But you're just always A. You know, you don't use metaphors, you don't use analogies, very rarely, but the analogies you use when you're describing things are very direct. Whereas I notice you when we watch comedy, when people make jokes, I get it immediately, and you're like, hang on, where are they going in this comedy? Okay, it was a joke, babe. Or it was like, this was a parallel. You know?
I'm not dumb. People are going to think I'm dumb.
All right. Well, let's get into. We can talk more about this stuff offhand anyway as we go. But let's get into some of the interesting questions that people left. I did a call out during the week. What are some genuine, interesting questions you would like to ask Stephanie and I as a couple, and maybe as the individual, as in the other partner, like how it was for each one of us coming into this, her moving to another country. There are a lot of things. We both had to accommodate another person in our lives. And because we've spent virtually our whole lives single, dating here and there, but not virtually, literally almost being single, learning to live alone all the time, and now having to live with somebody else. So let's go start with the first question from Basio El Mucho. He says, do you have similar needs for time alone or time with friends? How do you negotiate that, or is it more organic?
Yeah, so when I read this question the first time, I actually thought it was really funny. Because okay, so this is interesting. So before I met you, I really needed to have alone time.
Yep.
But now that I'm
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, but now that I'm with you, it's very different. I don't really need alone time because I like being with you, and then while we work on our own things, you know, like, because he usually works here and then I sit next to him, and I'll work on my own projects, but I like being around him, you know, so I still get my alone time, and we're also, both of us are very flexible with that, you know, like, if you want to work and I'll be on the couch maybe watching some YouTube, or other times I'll be writing and you'll be here, or we'll be together. So, but anyway, I think I don't really need alone time anymore because I can do that while I'm with you. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I've noticed something different to when you first came compared to now, which is nice, that you didn't fight to have alone time, because you and I are fine. Just, I can be in the study, you can be in another room or here with me. And once we zone into what we're doing, we're working on our own projects, we can chat to each other, but we don't push each other. It's not like one of us is very social and, you know, is pulling the other person to be social, or the other person, you know, is overly accommodating somebody else and really wants to get home really quickly. There's not that real tug of war. But what I noticed with you compared to before when you came here to now is that not just that you need less alone time, but you actually feel odd when I'm not around. Like you can have alone time, but then you really have your limit. So an example is you were on holidays recently, and the first day of your holidays, I went to work. And on the first day, I came down with this cold, but I still went to work, and you were like, oh, stay home. You didn't want me to go to work. You wanted me to stay home with you.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Before, when I lived alone in Holland, I used to always love being alone. But now that I'm with you, I would prefer to be at home with you and not be at home alone. And that's a very big difference from before.
I've ruined
Yeah.
you for other men.
Well, that in itself, for many, many reasons. Yeah, because I'll never find someone like you again.
Oh,
So, yeah. Yeah, it sounds very corny and cheesy, but it is really true. Like, you are very, very good for my type of character, I feel
I can
like.
just hear all the red pillars calling me a simp.
Wouldn't I be the simp in that scenario? Or not?
I was thinking about me going, oh.
Ah, okay.
Anyway, but yeah, that's I already knew when you came to live with me, I was already prepared for the adjustment of accommodating another person. I already knew that was going to be an obvious, not challenge, but something I really need to stay on top of. And it was going to be a real thing. I can't pretend it's not, because you hear a lot of people, whether it's women, they get married and they think, oh, my life is just going to be the same after I have kids, after I get married. Like there's this delusional thing that your single life, being alone and doing everything the way you want to do it and having everything the way you want it in your home is going to be exactly the same. And I find that really stupid when I hear people thinking like that, especially even if you've got a dog or a cat. It's like, nah, it's just going to be an extra thing. Like I buy a sweater and I just hang it in my closet. It's like, no, it's going to change your life. And I was very aware how my life was going to change having you with me.
Yeah, also going back to alone time, I don't really see it as alone time anymore now, I would say. I see it more as, for example, if we've been together in the house somewhere, and now I feel like I want to go and watch some YouTube on the couch and just chill. That's not because I want alone time, but it's just because I feel like relaxing and watching some YouTube. You know? So it's not necessarily that I need to be away from you. It's just that I'm going to do something else now. You know? So I don't really feel like I need alone time because I always love being around you. But that's because we're so compatible, I think. Like, it's always nice to have you around.
Okay. Yeah, it's just very easy. It's not that it was accidental. Again, watch some of our videos about how we got together and everything. We spent a lot of time just being immersed in each other's personalities to kind of know that our lives were very, very similar when we met each other. And it was just like a very easy mesh. It wasn't going to take a lot. We didn't need each other to adjust. To like, okay, now if you move over here, get ready for a big adjustment. Throw away the old Stephanie or throw away the old Bob. It's like, no, you just make my life better. And I would give the analogy to guys. They've asked me, what's the difference? Is there an improvement? I would just say my life feels warmer with you in it. So it's exactly the same. Like when I look around, everything's the same, how I spend my time. You're just with me all the time now.
Yeah. Well, that's also why I wanted to be with you. Because when we were talking beforehand, you kind of described to me that the way that I was living in Holland, that's kind of the way that I can live here, just with you. Like, not much had to change. And that's what attracted me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the next question, that one's really funny. Like, time with friends. Like, I don't have friends. So that's easy. You have a few friends, but I don't really have a need for friends. You're enough for me, and I just, whatever. So I don't have friends or anything like that.
You didn't even have many friends in Holland?
No, I think at my last job I had like a few colleagues that I hung out with sometimes. And before that, when I was at school studying to be a teacher, I had a few girlfriends, of course. Yeah, but the last few years in Holland, I didn't really have like, best friends or something like that.
Also, if you're here during the stream, if you would like to ask a question, let me see if I've got this up. Yeah, just put
there's a good one.
Put three smiley faces before your comment or question if you're here live, and then we can actually see it during the stream you guys on the right hand side of the stream, and we'll answer your question. All right. Is there a question?
Oh, let's just finish his one. So how do you negotiate that, or is it more organic? That's completely organic. Like, it just happens. We don't really talk about that because we don't really need alone time from each other.
Yeah.
So that's completely natural. Yeah.
It goes back to the thing I talk about quite a bit, which people are probably, roll their eyes at quite a bit. I talk about compatibility being at the top of the pyramid of things to look for in a partner. There are other nice to haves and extras, but the cake has to be compatibility, like your shared values, how you want to live, what kind of character and person you are inside, what your day-to-day is, what your week looks like. If you like your life, what does your week look like? And when you and I started Skyping initially, our lives looked very similar, if not identical in certain aspects. So I was looking forward to much more and almost everything, rather than being concerned with like, well, I got to say goodbye to that part of my life. I never felt like that. Obviously, there's parts of your life you're going to say goodbye to, like dating, but I was like glad to be rid of dating. I was already finished with dating before I met you for about a year or so. Yeah. So anyway, compatibility for me, I keep going on about it on my other channel, and we've talked about it. And it seems like a lot of people, I think that it should just come as a default. Everyone should know that you're supposed to be compatible, or, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think people really focus on compatibility where it counts. They just think that when you're together, trying to work it out is you trying to be compatible, and that's like virtuous or something.
Yeah, but in their defense, I think it's also tricky because people don't always think about all of these things, and I didn't. I've only started thinking about like what I really want out of a relationship and what I don't, like before I met you. And I had a few relationships before you, but I never really thought about this stuff before. You kind of just go through life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand that people don't really think about that consciously. I think that happens more as you go through life and as you have experiences.
That touches on another subject that we'll answer a question coming up about time and place. So like you were at a similar place in your life that I was as well. Even though there's an age difference, where the questions you're asking, who you wanted to be, how you wanted to live your life now, not changing who you are, but what you decided your life was going to look like, what your week to week, and you got your family, you got this, you got your life. That's good. I'm happy with that. You were in a similar place to me. So it wasn't just that. And that's kind of tricky for people to come across. But that's another subject.
I think that question is kind of interesting, Christina.
Christina, she asked, actually, is this coming up? Maybe I can put her comment up. Let's see. Alert.
That's the first time I've seen Christina without an H, I think.
Really? I've seen that before.
Yeah.
We can't put it up, but anyway, we didn't expect many people to show up. But we can just read it out anyway. Christina asks, you can read it out, babe.
What are some similarities that you have that make your relationship not typical or normal?
So non-typical things where we're compatible.
Maybe how much we enjoy talking.
Me more than you.
Yeah, but we talk a lot about everything. Maybe that's a bit not typical.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's not very typical. I think a lot of couples, they see someone they're attracted to. They've got a visual type, a biological, like attractive type, and everything is about being polite and being this best version of yourself for the other person and wanting it to work. But I think with you and I, not just that we couldn't see each other for a year because of the bug, but all we had was talking, and we like talking, And through talking, you really see the real person. You don't have to interpret things. I don't just see someone that I think is attractive and then I make up the story of who they are inside. And I think a lot of couples do that. They hope for a lot, or they excuse a lot of bad behavior because they've got a version of their ideal partner, you, in my head. And even if you slip up or you say or do something that I don't like, I'm thinking like, it's nothing. I know what she's like. I know the person I love. But they don't talk much.
Yeah.
So their relationship, part of it or a lot of it is in their head.
Yeah, but I think before we met each other, we had to talk a lot, like via email and Skype, because we couldn't see each other. But I think the thing that sticks out now maybe is that we still do that.
Mm.
We talk a lot. You know how he talks on his streams and in his videos and stuff. He can talk a lot.
Mm.
And we talk about all of these topics that he talks about on YouTube, but also other topics and also different aspects of what we're working on, our goals, things in our relationship. You know, we talk about all of that stuff as well. So that might be a bit abnormal, like the degree to which we talk. Yeah, but it's fun because we both love talking about all kinds of stuff. So.
There we go. I managed to figure out how to put Christina's comment up here. All right.
Other than that, it might be, that's not really atypical, but more like a really fun coincidence that we're both creative, but that's not really abnormal.
I think it feeds into us being able to talk because you've got a rich inner world and you think about things and you connect concepts together. Even if you're not that great at metaphors and analogies, but you're very curious and you want 1 + 1 to equal 2 in conversations. Like, we need to understand each other. So we always talk to make sure we're on the same page. It's not like, she's talking like a girl, whatever, let that go. It's like, no, what do you mean by that? And we're always doing that. We're not treating each other like we just roll our eyes at the other person because that's a chick or that's a guy. And you just learn to tolerate each other because you want company.
Yeah, then we wouldn't even have gotten this far.
A lot of people do. I look in my past. You didn't have these, but in the West especially, you meet a person, they're a lot better than a lot of the people out there. And just because they're polite and a lot better, you try to make a relationship work. Can I have my tea as well, babe? You try to make a relationship work with someone who's decent. You know, but I think the fact that we talk a lot and we communicate everything and we share everything, not because we're trying to, but it's just because in our nature to be talkative and, look at this, have a look at this video. Oh, what do you think about this? I saw this person say this. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
You know?
And that plays into everything. That makes us like really close to each other. And that's also why we don't need alone time, because it's just so much fun being around each other.
Yeah. I feel very solid and stable with Stephanie because I've talked about this quite a bit. Conversation is kind of the glue that really makes me know where you stand and where we are, rather than trying to interpret a lot of it. Like just trying to go off. If we have a nice time going out or go for a drive, or we have a nice moment where we laugh and we feel just organically close to each other because we're watching a movie or we share a joke and we feel really warm, that's not the only thing I hold on to. It's because all through our day we're sprinkling in connecting with each other with talk, and it's like pulling each other close together all the time. We're not just describing the world. We're not going to cafes and going, how's your coffee, babe? Nice. We're not talking from a distance. We're always like pulling each other in like, oh, what do you think? What do you mean about that? Like, it's always like what, how, where, why, you, me. The conversations I feel like are always like that. And they're playful. They're not anything overly deep, but we do have kind of meaningful conversations as well.
Yeah.
So I think it just kind of happens. But I also knew, I don't know if you felt this way, but I knew through my channel and over the years that I needed a person that I could share my inner world with and talk and let everything out way before I met you. Because I went on dates before you where girls thought I talked, I thought too much. You think too much. You're too, you go too deep in everything. Don't overthink it. Let it go. What's with all the questions? And I felt like there's not a lot of people that actually want to dive into the deep end of,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've told you before that I've noticed I'm able to do this more with foreign men. Yeah, I don't know if that's a coincidence, but because the way that I can talk with you, the closest I've ever gotten to that before was with my first relationship, and he was from England. But I think Dutch men or Dutch people, they're very maybe I'm generalizing, so I don't want to do that, but just on my experience, because we're very direct and down to earth. So sometimes I notice that with foreign men, like with Americans, because I've also lived on Aruba, you can talk more about stuff sometimes. Like just different topics, the world, what ifs.
Maybe it's your creative side, because like growing up in Holland, I appreciate Dutch people being very direct, to the point, and almost very dry. And if you've grown up there, you feel like, yeah, I know everything. There's not much I know. Every person seems similar. Whereas someone foreign, also because you're creative, you write stories, right? So your brain is always interested in somewhere else.
I have to say though, in Dutch people's defense, that might just be my experience, but I've never really been that social, so I haven't had many interactions with many different people, so that might just be not true and just my experience. So
Yeah, you're the least social person no, not really, but actually that I've been with.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go back to the questions. Melee asks, are you guys a natural fit for one another and trust each other in all aspects? I feel a natural relationship. You don't have to work hard at it. Many people... Sorry.
He's burping, coughing.
I know, I'm a mess. Many can seem like a job. I feel a natural relationship, you don't have to work hard at it. Many seem like a job.
We are definitely a natural fit for each other. We definitely trust each other in all aspects. The next sentence I found very interesting. I feel a natural relationship you don't have to work hard at. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, I think, where I said, I don't think if you have a really good relationship that it should feel like hard work, but you should be aware and intentional.
Yeah.
And I think by talking so much about different topics, also things in our relationship, that really helps with that. Because you shouldn't feel like you're struggling every day in your relationship, obviously, like it's hard work. I just think, but you do need to be aware and intentional, be aware of the other person and how what you're doing is affecting him and, what is good for the relationship, things like that. Just be aware and intentional and like take care of your relationship.
Yeah, but I think that this is an example where a lot of people don't do it, but to me it shows that they don't care about the person. If you're intentional, you want to. You become intentional, you're aware of the other person and you care enough and you're curious. You don't let things slide. You don't roll your eyes and go, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I just want to live in this relationship on my own and like I'll tolerate them like a screaming baby. Like if you care, you want to know. You don't just brush things off. And I think it's easier. There's a lot of people who really, they're with partners that don't really like them or they don't care about them. So.
Yeah.
And also,
But
before let me just finish that thought. Many seem like a job. I think the wisdom out there, everyone tells you relationships are hard work. So it reinforces that all relationships are hard. And if you don't get along with your partner, it's normal.
Yeah, but I feel like some of these things are a little bit like like obviously, if you feel like your relationship is hard work every day, you should be analyzing and reflecting a little bit, right? Okay, what's going on? Is it me? Is it her or him? What can we do to solve this? And then try to fix it. And if it's not fixable, then, maybe you shouldn't be together.
Well, Melee actually, he did a follow-up question here to his. He says, it's more you are trying to get through to one another, but you are worlds apart, really.
What's the context of that question?
His question here.
Ah.
So that was his initial one this week, and he's just clarifying, I think. He's clarifying that.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
Well, that's an example. You're not really compatible.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. Almost all my relationships were like that, except for one, really, in my past, and now you. But most of it is like you meet someone that is decent enough, but because you're not compatible, you are worlds apart. And you're always like trying to bridge the gap. You're always trying to. But with you, it's very easy. I always feel like you're right there next to me, and we just need to communicate and make sure we're on the same page, and you get where I mean and I get what you mean. But what Melee's saying, I that's very familiar to me.
Yeah, but if you're trying to get through to one another, like the way that you worded it here, I kind of take from that you are both trying to get through to each other. So you're both saying what you want, right? And then if you're still worlds apart, then that seems to me like it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, especially if it's on the big things. If you're worlds apart on really big values, like flags in your relationship where you want to be and how you want to live and what you want to get to. Like if one of you wants marriage or kids and the other one's completely against it, or one person's highly religious and you're not.
Yeah, but it also depends on, because he says you're both trying to get through to one another, but are you also listening to the other person, and are you open to what the other person is saying? Because if you're both not, then you're both just fighting each other.
This is like you can't communicate and you're two very different people. So that's like it's kind of the worst scenario, which is very typical. This is very typical, babe. I don't know what your experience, but here in the West, this is what I found. I found it very hard to communicate with girls in the West, and what we wanted were worlds apart. But if you can't even communicate, if one person's not being honest, they're shy, they're not really telling you who they are, what they want, they don't know how to communicate, then how can they even tell you what their world is? And you're trying to interpret their world, and it could be wrong, but they won't tell you. It's...
You know what's... We had a short discussion about this a while ago, about communication. Because you just said when people can't communicate. And I actually... I think that everyone can communicate, but I think not everyone wants to.
Yeah?
Yeah. Maybe that's just me. But maybe that's just because I just say what I think or what I want.
I think you might have a point there. I think a lot of people have a lot of excuses like, I'm shy, I'm scared. If I say this, they won't like it. If I say this, I might lose them. We'll have an argument.
Yeah, so they don't want to for a certain reason. For whatever reason, they don't want to, but they can. They know how to. Like everyone can say how they feel or what they want. They just don't want to. So they can communicate, but they just choose not to.
Yeah, that's a good point. So even say with me, I might say, well, she's shy and she finds it hard to open up to me because I might be intimidating. I use bigger words maybe, or I come off as, if I meet someone, I'm very confident and I use very clear big words and I articulate myself, and then it makes a person kind of shrink, and I can't blame her. Maybe I'm overwhelming, but it's not true. However bad your language is, if you can communicate with your family and friends and tell them exactly how you feel and fumble through your basic words, you can still tell me. So it is, I think there's a lot of what you said is true, where people just don't really want to and they find every excuse not to.
That's not even about communication. That's more about you need to work on yourself. That's about other stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, like fear and anxiety and...
Yeah. We got a few funny Does he leave the toilet seat up? I have no idea, actually.
What do you mean you have no idea?
Well, I'm never with you in the toilet.
No, but when you come into the toilet, is the toilet seat up or
Ah,
down?
like that. No,
Yeah.
it's always down.
Yeah, I'm always putting it down.
Yeah.
I always put everything down with the lid and everything most of the time. Um,
Do you talk about current events news? Yeah, we do.
not that
Sometimes.
we don't watch general political current events. We do hear them in passing, or if we see a news article. But
But it's not from the news. It's always from like the Daily Wire or from Candace Owens' channel, and then I'll share something with you. Or
yeah, or from some particular network that we watch, or someone you're subscribed to, or I'm subscribed to, and we'll say I'll share a video, or we'll talk about it, or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we'll talk about like when we hear something about politics in Holland or in America or something. Yeah.
Ren, congratulations on your marriage. Thank you. We're approaching 2 years now. It'll be 2 years. No.
2 years living together this month.
Yeah, 2 years.
And
End of the year. Yeah.
and in November we'll be married for 2 years.
Yeah, but it will be very soon 2 years since you came and lived with me.
Yeah, the end of this month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been busy with college and graduating next week. Good for you. Thank you, Human Bob, for helping me be honest with my life and relationships. You're welcome. See, this is the kind of stuff I enjoy. Not fighting who's right, who's wrong. You know, women can act bad, and a lot of them in the West do. And the dating problems, yeah, I can agree with you. But this guy going to college, he's graduating, he's looking to have a better life. This is the kind of stuff I wish I got onto more. I only started to want to find solutions and have a better life around, I'd say 40, which for me is a bit late. But then again, I bloomed very late in a lot of things. But no, good for you. Thank you. Let's get back to Luke. This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
You can read it.
Knowing each other as well as you do you believe there would have been a time or event in both of your pasts that hadn't occurred, making you incompatible with each other? So we kind of dissected this question, and I think there are two questions in here. The first one being, do we believe there would have been a time, like in our past, that we could have been compatible with each other? And then the second question is...
As in, if we met earlier?
Yeah, like at a different time in our lives. And I think that is very difficult to answer.
It depends when. Well, like when I became an adult, like when I was 18, you were 3 years old.
Dirty man. No.
High five. No, but like when, you know, a lot of us develop and have a lot of experiences in our 20s. So I think most of us start to come into our own in our 30s, I think, once we...
Yeah, I agree.
So that's a tricky one. There's some people that really have a direction and know where they are early on in their 20s. And for me, I find that really admirable. I only started to discover who I was in my early 30s.
I think I really met you in the best time of my life. Yeah. So I really don't know. On the one hand, I think because we are so compatible, it would have still worked out, but I don't... It might have been a bit more tricky just because of where we were in our lives at that point.
Yeah. The hypothetical questions, they're interesting. I've said this to you. But I don't... You say they're good for what they can reveal about how you think. I agree. But when people, and I'm not saying any of you guys do, but there's a lot of channels and people that really are obsessed on what ifs. You know, where will this be in 5 or 10 years? Or what do you think would have happened 50 years ago if the world changed and this happened and we went off on that direction? Or what if you could go back on a time machine and meet each other now with the brains you have? It's like, It's interesting. Of course, everyone would love to go back now with their brains when they're 20. If you had your brain and your experience and how you felt as yourself, and I did, and we both met each other at the same age, we were both 22. Yeah, that would be great, but
Yeah.
not going to happen. And yeah,
I think I enjoy what if questions more than you. You get a little annoyed by them sometimes.
yeah, I noticed that as well when you're telling me a storyline you're working on, and I always interject with reality, and I'm like, yeah, but a guy wouldn't do that. And you go, it's a story.
In my story, this is how it goes.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
like, babe, it's a story. I'm like, all right, pull back. All right, let me just buy into this world, and this is, I have to buy into that person being like this. But I'm always interjecting reality. It's like, no, it won't work. People don't act that way. You often talk about it would be good in society if they did this, and then people would get along better. And I'm always saying, yeah, but human nature, babe. People are just going. You hand them easy, free stuff, and they'll just be lazy and they'll act like animals. And
It's because if you interject with reality, like the way the world is, then I can't talk about anything. Because the way that I would like structure society in one of my storylines, because I write, that's always like really good, and that's very different from the world, you know.
yeah, I get it, but it's like when you watch a really good science fiction movie, make it realistic and I'll buy into it. But there's some things where you're asking me about stuff and you're saying, and this person does this, and then the government acts like this. And it's like, okay, how do you get to the point of a government actually acting like a good person and treating people well first? Because the governments don't act like that. And you're like, oh, well, it just happens. Like I have to buy into it. Like there's no backstory. I have to make it realistic for me to buy into the science fiction.
Yeah, because everything is always perfect in my stories.
Yeah, you start
because
with
I control it.
You start with the premise of the world is the way it is, and there's no backstory. Just buy it, and now this is the story. Anyway, we're digressing. Did we answer the question? No,
And the second one is, so if anything had happened, like an event in the past, would that have made you not compatible with each other? Yeah, so we talked about this. So, for example, if either one of us had kids,
Yep.
that might have messed things up.
Yeah, well, if one of us was in a wheelchair, had an accident, you know.
Yeah.
So again, this is part of the thing that it's interesting, but when I look at a topic, which is part of my frustration with some discussions online about relationships, I find it very interesting if the relationship is an object, like the issue is an object, let's look at it from every angle, right? Whereas you talk with some people online, it's like they believe relationships are only this way. And I'm like, no, this is a three-dimensional thing, a relationship. Let's look at it from this way. Let's look at it from a woman's point of view. Let's look at it from my point of view. Who's responsible? So like I like to turn the thing around to make it real, to make it three-dimensional. And are you getting me, or am I losing you on the analogy?
You're losing me.
Yeah, like I'm talking about what were you talking about? You were talking about something and I was going somewhere.
See, this is interesting, right? We love communicating and talking, but we have two very different communication styles. I am very direct and literal, and he likes to talk around stuff. So sometimes he loses me, and I'm like, just say what you mean. What do you mean?
I was getting somewhere, right? I was making a good point. Anyway. Yeah, I think it was talking about if one of us had kids, if one of us had gone in a different direction in life, of course those things can play into it.
If you had lived in a dangerous country,
yeah,
then I wouldn't have moved to you. Then you would have had to come to Holland.
Yeah. Actually, that wouldn't have been a big stretch. I actually really liked Holland.
Or if like one of us was like hyper religious, and
we wouldn't have been, see again. That's an example of these topics. Like we wouldn't have even.
Yeah, but that's his question. So then we wouldn't be compatible, probably.
Yeah. Again, what makes you compatible? Compatibility is a huge thing. It answers so many of these questions. Yeah, but what if then you wouldn't be compatible? Yeah, but what if one of you was like this? Then we wouldn't be compatible because it's a big thing. If it's a small thing, then it's kind of like, yeah, we're compatible in all the fundamental areas. All the small incompatibilities are like, yeah, I can live with that, you know. But if all like, I think with, say for instance, you have your quirks and I have my quirks. If we weren't compatible with our core values, our little quirks would drive us nuts and we'd be arguing about where I left the cup, the toothbrush. But because we're compatible and good and you feel safe with me and I trust you and we trust each other, that these things are funny now.
Like the cupboard door.
The cupboard door.
You can't close the cupboard door. It's always open.
Yes, I can.
And I always close it. But it's funny to me. It's like,
I want to keep that thing going. I do it intentionally. No. Yeah, I've got little quirks, but that's what I mean. Like there's little quirks that would drive her nuts if she didn't click with me very closely on our compatible values. And I found this, and a lot of guys and girls who have complaints about their partners, and it just infuriates them, all these little things. It's because you really aren't compatible. You might not even talk. And it makes me think sometimes there could be people who are like 50% compatible, but they don't talk. They've got a lot of fears and anxieties. They're not good with themselves, like you said. And they could actually make themselves 80% compatible if they just open their mouth. But they don't. And they talk, and then they bitch and moan and argue about toothbrushes and who do you move your plate or whatever. And then you go, oh, enough of this. I don't get along with this person. Well, if you opened your mouth, you would. Maybe. And if you open your mouth, maybe you'd find out exactly that you aren't meant to be together.
I think that's a really good way of seeing if your relationship actually is a good one. If people get angry about little things, because it's not about the little things, obviously. So that shows there's something wrong in the relationship. So it's actually a really good measuring tool.
But if none of you talk...
No, I mean more for outside people to see a couple.
Yeah, that's
then you
true.
can see... But also for yourself. But I think people don't always think about these things, like I said before. But that would be good. Like if you're always getting really annoyed about something your partner does, then you should really think, why am I getting so annoyed? If everything was good and I completely loved this person and I was completely happy, I wouldn't care about this at all. You know? So it tells you that something's wrong.
Yeah. I really noticed this in my 30s, late 30s especially, when I started to, I feel like I started to get to know myself in my early 30s, and the glasses became clearer and clearer and clearer about who I was and what I wanted and what a good relationship looked like compared to what a bad relationship looked like. It was also my past relationship failures compared to seeing couples that worked. And I really saw when I went to family functions or met couples that they really were good with each other. They trusted, they were happy, they joked. Their first reaction with each other wasn't like, hey, I didn't like that. It was always fun and laughter. The one partner could make fun of them and the other one would laugh, and vice versa. And one partner would, like at a party, say, oh, babe, get me a drink. And she would be happy to do it. She wouldn't feel like it was a command, like he was demeaning her. And I'd see other women who are married at the barbecue or party, they're going, don't let him speak to you like that. It's like, I'm thinking, look, what kind of relationship do you have with your husband? Or that's your relationship, your partner. You should know them. You know when they're saying, hey, give me this or do this, or can you do this for me? Or pass me this. Even though it is kind of like an instruction or a command, but it's not like, I'm not putting you down. And there's a lot of people that feel like, don't tell me what to do. Say please. It's like, I'm not going to tell my partner, please. Like, you're not a stranger. And I feel like there's so many partners, they've got this wall between them.
Yeah. Well,
you have to be hyper polite with everything. You can't joke with each other. That's an interesting one. Not really, no. And I'm not just saying that. I don't really think I have anything to regret, because at that time I was kind of getting a lot out of off my chest, especially with my earliest videos. But I don't think I was really like some sort of troll or anything. My content's out of all of that the red pill content before, I was one of the most what could you say? I was like
Mild ones?
very mild. Like I was never the guy. I was always talking very plainly about everyday. I might rant and vent about something, but I was kind of always doing like a diary journal entry describing my experience. I wasn't really into the whole politics of things.
Yeah, but that's also how I got to know you because of your past videos.
Mm.
So if you hadn't done that, then we wouldn't even be together. So
Yeah, so I was never political. And there was nothing really that I feel like I spurred out with any topics or I joined the bandwagon on hating on anyone. And while I can go back on, videos from years ago and say, well, I'm not embarrassed about it. If I were to do the same video again, it would be a bit different with my mind and like what I've experienced so far. And I might not be as harsh on that, though I still don't disagree with it. But there's nothing I kind of regret where I was one way and I completely flipped. I don't think I really can think of anything where I've flipped. But no, not really. I guess it would. You need to point out which video, and I could describe at best how my views have altered or shifted or adjusted slightly. But I don't think I've gone kind of black and white in any way.
oh, Christina has another question. Basically, just asking questions to clarify, or to let him know sometimes that he's going off a little bit and bring him back to the topic. But basically, most of the time, it's just by asking, what do you mean, or do you mean this, and then just continue talking like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's like I'm dragging you into the woods, and you're like, "Whoa, where are we going?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it helps because we feel kind of off, and I notice as well if I start to see her not quite understanding where I'm going, and I have to go, do you understand what I mean, or does that make sense, or you even just say, I don't know what you're saying. Like we're very quick to get each other back on a mutual baseline.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the main thing I do is just ask him questions to clarify. Yeah.
Okay. T-Dog. This is an interesting one. Without specifics, how did you deal with the financial subject, especially given the amount of community fear surrounding this issue? The fear T-Dog's talking about is there's a very legitimate fear, especially in the West, that women, a lot of the gold diggers they marry a guy and then they just take half of everything he has, and it's very dangerous, which it is. It's very risky in the West legally. So how did we deal with it?
Well, basically what we did is when I first came here about 2 years ago, I had money saved up on my account from Holland. So for the first 6 months that I lived here, I couldn't work because I was on a tourist visa. So every month I wired money to your account to kind of help out with the groceries, so it was kind of fair. And then after 6 months, I got a job. And then what we did is we opened an account together, and both of our salaries just go in there, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. When Stephanie started working, we opened up a joint account, and all of our salaries and savings are going into there. And look, people are also going to say, the legally, like, yeah, but what if Stephanie, in X amount of years later on, she decides to take half your house from you or whatever? Like, there's a lot of these, again, hypotheticals, which I'm not a big fan of. Yes, anything can happen. But for me, it's like you'll never experience, like, I wanted to be with you. It's like saying also, like, my brother could theoretically take a good portion of something we both own in the family, or he could burn my house down, or my mother could report me to the police for having abused her. Or like, there's a lot of stuff that could happen, but the degree to which I get to know someone over time that I trust them to take the next step, that's the best you can do to have a relationship with someone. I can't keep having separate worlds with people and never, and just being on, like, I wanted to be with you.
Yeah, but what I also think about this question is like, are you talking about a couple in general, or are you talking about us? Because if you ask us, oh, what if in 5 years she tries to take everything from you? Then you're assuming that that I'm the type of person that would do that, and you don't know that, you know. So are you talking about just a couple in general, because you know about the red pill and all this stuff that happens in Western countries? Then I get that. But if you're actually talking about us and you're asking us, you can't assume that I'm a type of person that does that. Yeah, if you don't know me.
Okay,
You know?
yeah, you're right. So this is the topic I always have problems with on my channel. I can agree with you generally. You're 100% right, but then if you're asking me, that's a different story about how I organize my life and the choices I make. I don't make choices and think and act the same as everyone else out there. So they're two separate worlds. So we can answer this question like, yeah, we can agree that it's dangerous out there for men. The laws are biased against men. All the financial stuff, it's dangerous. Men have to be careful, yeah. But if we're talking about us, again, we can just think like, say, hypothetically, not that it would happen, but if things didn't work out between us in 10 years, like, how would we handle it? But then there's, you know.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. We can answer that question personally,
Yeah.
right? But people have to separate us from, oh, this is going to happen because I know about the red pill. That's what I mean.
A lot of people don't, though. They just think.
Yeah, but then you might not, you can, why even ask us the question? That's what I mean. So I can answer the question and say, because we have talked about this, because we always talk about these types of topics. If for some reason in 10 years it would end amicably, first of all, and we would just sit down and see how we want to maybe split some money or whatever, and then I would go back to Holland and that's it. You know, because if you ask us like, oh, is she going to take everything from you? You're not even talking about us, because I'm not that kind of person. You know what I mean? So I just mean you need to separate it from, you can ask us as individuals, or you can ask it, but in the back of your mind, you already have the answer that you want us to give you because of the whole red pill.
Yeah, I think they're wanting, because they got the data of what the numbers say out there, they are saying, well, I've got this ace up my sleeve, I've got this golden card, and this is the truth. Yeah, it is the truth out there, but do you want to hear our answer? Like how we're doing things, what we would do, and who I am?
Yeah, I guess I could say, like, given everything that I know about the red pill, that, yeah, you're right. Like, you know, in terms of, like, what I could take or do or whatever. That's objectively true, right? But then the second step is the person that I am. And I would never do anything like that. So, yeah.
Well, I just look at myself. I look at the maniacs and the degenerates out in the supermarket, like some of the people out there. And it's like, yeah, those are the guys out there. And it's like, I'm embarrassed of how uncivilized some people are out there. It's like, yeah, generally people are like that out there. They're terrible. But I know what I'm like, and I know what decisions I'm going to make.
Yeah, also, just to come back to this topic, we've talked about this again, like, also about people that have been in a relationship or in a marriage, and then when it ends, they turn around and become a completely different person and try to screw the other person over. How weird that is, you know? Because all of my relationships have ended very amicably, you know? And I can't imagine being in a relationship with someone and really caring about the other person, and then when it ends, you turn around and you just become this malicious person. I don't understand that. Like, even if it would end, then you can just end it amicably. Like, why are you now all of a sudden going to hate this person? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I've never understood that. I can't understand how you can care so much more than anyone else about this person at one point, and now you're going to become their worst enemy. So you love them more than anyone on the street. Even you're with them all the time and you would be around them and support them even more than their family. You're around them all the time. You love and care for them more than anyone else, and you trust them more than anyone else. And then you flip, you become Jekyll and Hyde. So when things end, you treat them worse than any stranger on the street. Your partner could go and get more support and understanding from a nobody on the street than you. You are their number one enemy now. So you go from their number one fan to their number one enemy. I've never understood that flip. And for me, it's part of probably character. And I think there's just a lot of very malicious people out there.
Yeah, it's scary because obviously it happens a lot.
I've talked to some girls when they're talking really badly about their ex, and they're almost laughing and joking about what they did afterwards, and they stood them up and they laughed on our date, like he wanted to make up and I didn't even show up. And one girl I remember, she says she pretended he was trying to get her back, and she as a final game to like stick the knife in, she said, okay, let's have a coffee and talk things through, because he was like begging to come back. I can't remember what happened, how they ended. And then she went to the restaurant where she was supposed to go just to see him sitting there waiting as she drove off, and she sent him a text or something. And she was like laughing about it, trying to justify how he was this and he was that and how he deserved it. And I'm like, you're a bitch.
Yeah, that says something about the person, definitely. Yeah.
But I think I think that there's a lot of people that think, but especially women, I'm being biased here because I've heard it more from women's mouth. They have a certain idea about how the relationship's going to go. They've got this fairy tale thing, and when it ends, they blame the guy from ending the story. Like the fairy tale is over, and she's pissed off that you ruined the story. Like it wasn't what I imagined it was going to be, and they're kind of pissed off at the person.
Yeah, but that whole premise is wrong. It's not about the story. It's about the person, or at least it's supposed to be. So that's probably why it goes wrong. She wants some kind of story. He just happens to be the person in that story. And then if he can't give her the story, then he becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, but she's not logically thinking this way, babe. This is how she feels.
Yeah, okay. Then I don't know.
You're right. I agree with you. Melee says, so you guys are both homebodies, so you would be spending a lot of time together, hence I suspect the connection. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, if we weren't, that's a very good point. Naturally, if we're compatible, we like being homebodies, we're true to ourselves, and with each other, it's just very easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love being at home. Yeah.
Look, and I can only reflect on past relationships where I was always much more of a homebody than all of my other relationships, bar one. And it's always like, well, I always thought, yeah, we learn from each other, because some of my exes that were more outgoing, I ended up going out more and broadening myself and like learning to go out and traveling a little bit more. And that was good for me. I enjoyed that, right? But I thought also now it's like a compromise as well. Like you watch movies with me at home. We stay in this weekend, but they always fought against it. Mm-hmm. So it was always like, you really need to have that core part of you very, very similar. If you and I are almost the same, but even if we were I was a bit more outgoing than you, I think you really, that distance can't be too great, because it makes this very easy for us to get along with each other.
But that depends though. If you were a bit more outgoing, but you just wanted to do things with me, I would be okay with that. But if you were more outgoing and you wanted to do things with other people, that would be difficult for me.
Yeah, you're not good with like a lot of people. You're not.
No, I don't need to be around people really.
Yeah, you like going out with me, but not as much with. Again, that's kind of those things. I'm not a big crowd person either. I like one-on-ones. My social interactions are most difficult as well when it's with a whole bunch of people, because when it's a whole bunch of people talk on the surface. They talk about what other people are doing. They talk about the weather. They talk about all this stuff that's just like so surface. And it's not that it's just so boring. and I can talk about it a little bit, but it doesn't go anywhere. But I find one-on-one conversations are much more interesting. Or when we've gone out and we talk to a couple or one person, it's like you start talking about each other. I like talking about the person. And when these people that I don't know either don't have much to talk about themselves, they're not interested, they don't have a inner world, they don't want to express themselves, all they do is talk about what they've seen, where they've gone, what they've bought.
Yeah, that's why I find being social tricky sometimes, because I'm not interested in just like daily chat, what do you call it, small talk. That doesn't really interest me at all. I like having interesting conversations.
Small talk is good because it's designed to kind of just break the ice. But I feel like a lot of people, they just small talk for hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that pretty difficult. Yeah.
I find that impossible. Yeah, you find it, your limit for that is way shorter than mine. I've got a bit more patience, but you cut off a lot quicker than I do.
I do it sometimes like at work, because I want to feel comfortable about my colleagues. And if I have small talk, sometimes you keep that good relationship kind of, you know? But just with like other people, I find it difficult because I'm not interested. That's what makes it tough. Oh, that's a nice comment. That's a compliment. Thank you, Boffin. I'll take that as a compliment.
Someone's calling you a dude.
Male-brained, if you call me male-brained, that's a huge compliment, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I completely acknowledge that women are more emotional and stuff. And that's not really fun, you know, because obviously I get emotional sometimes about stuff. And it's annoying. Like, I really like the stoicism that men have, like you as well. Like, you're very calm. I like that. You know, that's much better than being super emotional. Not that I'm super emotional, but, you know, women are more emotional than men.
Yeah, you still have your moments. But
What? No, I'm kidding.
but what I really appreciated with you is if I would talk logically about a man's experience, like this is what men go through, and it's just like a fairness thing. Like, you know, a man's not listened to when this happens, but when a woman does it, it's like everyone pays attention, and you're like, yeah, that's not fair. I completely see that. So even though you're a woman, you're like, you can see the structure and the logic and the philosophical fairness of something. Like, yeah, that's not fair. Whereas you're like, you don't just, you are a woman, and sometimes you put yourself as a woman in the conversation, but you can be sort of more sensible and male-brained. You don't resist it with your female emotion as much as most women.
Well, I think regarding the whole red pill, that's also why I like, not that I can relate to what men are going through, but I appreciate it. You know, because
Why?
I think it's because I can kind of put myself in their position, like them with the dating scene, for example, and how dangerous that can be. You know, because I myself, I like to be in control. I'm good on my own. You know, like before you, I wouldn't necessarily need to be with someone. So, like, I'm kind of butchering this. What I'm trying to say is, if I were a man and I would have those types of women to date, no way in hell I would even try. I wouldn't even, because I like to be in control of my life, right? And if I can't be with someone and I can't trust that person, I wouldn't even go for it. So I think that's why I'm kind of sympathetic to what men are going through.
I was just going to say, I think a reason for it as well is because you're a loner.
Yeah.
You're not a social person, so you're very clued in. You can appreciate the loner's position, and a lot of men feel alone in this. Society's against them. Women expect them, so it's kind of like this unfairness that's put on this guy to do everything, and he's to blame. He's not treated fairly, and you can really see from an individual's point of view how unfairly another individual is treated.
Yeah, but also how chaotic it is, and how that's kind of how it comes across to me when I watch all those videos. Like, you don't even know who to trust or what is what with those types of women sometimes, that I wouldn't even try. You know, there are other things you can do. You don't have to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is there any? I think there's another.
Oh, I wasn't a tomboy though.
Ah, no, I don't think you were. From all the
No.
experience and all the photos I saw of you and how you described your
Yeah.
childhood and things like that.
I wouldn't say I was like a girly girl, but I also wouldn't say I was a tomboy. I was just kind of like sometimes I would have girlfriends in school and stuff, but I've also always been very much in my head and a little bit of a loner, I would say.
Yeah, reading books off on your own, stuff like that.
Mm.
No, if you're a tomboy, you would be more like masculine traits, like sports and a lot of fixing and things, hands-on, practical. So
No,
no,
yeah, I'm not like that.
no. Um, Chelon Defoe says, firstly, why have I got reflux?
Are you like burping? I think it's just because we're
I'm leaning
drinking.
forward.
Oh,
All
sorry,
right.
we're gross.
Firstly, I love your content and clarity that you bring to this platform. My question is, how do you balance the intellectual / logical aspects of your relationship to the passionate / romantic aspects? From my experiences and observations, majority of couples lean towards a side, too logical and the relationship is dull, whereas too passionate and the relationship is emotionally draining. I would love to hear your feedback and thoughts on this topic.
I feel like that's also kind of naturally balanced with us because we don't really think about that because we enjoy talking and stuff, and that's kind of like the intellectual logical part of it. But then we also have our relationship and our quality time and everything.
Yeah, we have our fun conversation, our jokes. Like we have the normal when the brain is switched off and we just like blab and talk and joke and spend time with each other, kind of like a man and a woman. But I think most of our conversations are very logical and interesting ideas and communicating and planning and like most of most of our conversations I don't think are overly emotional.
No.
And so then the other side where we do joke, yeah, I think there's a good balance. Yeah, I don't feel like we need to try. I think also one thing we do every week is we do a Monday morning catch up and a Friday morning catch up as well. And we're so comfortable around each other that sometimes like we could maybe drift and be complacent. Like you could go off and do your own thing on your own project. And we're always kind of making sure the logic, like maintaining what is important to us, like our marriage and our relationship and the other person. Like I always say to Stephanie, like you and I individually aren't as important anymore. Like our marriage and relationship has to come first. The other person comes second, and then you come third. Because you can always you've got enough time on your own. You have as much time as you want. You don't have to worry about not having any time for yourself. But if you kind of just feel like, yeah, the relationship will take care of itself because we're so compatible, you can get lazy. It's like anything, your health. You become complacent and it just drifts away. So every week, we talk all the time, but we make an important point every Monday morning and Friday to do a catch up on Monday, like what are each of us working on, what's your project, what's going on during the week, any random thoughts, and then Friday specifically we talk about our marriage.
We sound like nerds.
Yeah. But I like that when we talk to each other and just clarify where we are every week, where is your headspace, where's mine, then you just feel really good.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to wonder everything. I don't have to wonder like things are going good, but like I hope things are still good with her. I haven't talked to her for a while. It feels good, but I don't know.
And it's fun. I like doing the catch-ups. It's
Yeah,
fun.
well, you've seen me. I do streams about this stuff, so I always find it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like this question, it's interesting, but I think we both the way we maintain our relationship with our Monday and Friday chats, and it's usually like just 5 minutes.
I feel like the logical intellectual side, that happens completely naturally because we enjoy talking.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side, the passionate romantic side, that's more intentional and us being aware, I feel like. Like, it's also natural, but it's also like we recognize when we've been working all day, for example. Okay, in the evening, it's time for quality time. But it's also because we want to, but it's also partly just being aware of it, I feel like.
And it's also, everyone should be aware, I think. If you ask me a question, I ask you, we're talking about a serious topic. We know when we're talking about a serious topic. Mm-hmm. And when we're not, we're just always joking around. Mm. We're having fun. But unless it's like, you know the difference. Like even during this conversation, we laughed and joked a bit. But when there's like, okay, we're addressing this topic. What do you think? What do I think? This is interesting. This is fun in a very intellectual level. And then when we're not talking about that, everything else is just like lighthearted and fun. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you don't need like a script. It's like, okay, now we're in relaxed mode and fun mode. Now we're in serious mode.
No, that goes naturally. We go from one side to the other naturally.
But I think the conversation and the morning catch-ups twice a week as like a fun habit to do, just to make sure we know where the other person is.
Yeah.
Just like helps. You just feel like very much in control of where the relationship is every week.
Yeah, I feel like the Monday catch-up is more, that's about our projects and what we're working on. And that's more so that we can discuss, hold each other accountable a little bit with our projects.
Yeah.
And then the Friday one is more about how are we doing, what are we going to do this weekend, anything we want to talk about.
Yeah. Again, it's like, it's very, we're lucky that we both like talking so much. And because we talk, we tell each other with our voice how important this is. We talk like this. We don't just talk and it accidentally happens. It's like, no, we acknowledge because we talk and we like doing this, this is why we're glued together. And this is very intentional. So the talking itself and how we talk lets us know that we're being present and we're being intentional with this stuff too. We're not forcing ourselves to,
Yeah, like I can imagine that there are couples that really wouldn't want to, that don't find this interesting. Like, that wouldn't want to talk so much.
Where's the magic? It seems so clinical.
So you can imagine if you don't like talking, then that's not really going to happen.
I would say there's a lot of people that would say we seem like it might seem a bit too dry and not mechanical, but very, there's not as much magic going on, unpredictable magic. And
yeah, but that's why I answered that Christina's question. I think that might be something that's a little bit odd about us, like that we really enjoy talking and discussing different things about different topics.
Which question did she ask?
It was back up somewhere. Like she asked about what is something that is...
Is it that one?
Yeah, some similarities that are not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any final questions from you guys?
Have we discussed all those that we had there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the last one. So if any of you guys have any final questions you would like to ask, and if you want to ask them, put 3 smiley faces in front of your comment or question like that, and we can answer them.
Didn't we have one more about arguments?
Oh, yeah. Last week on my stream, someone asked an interesting one that I wanted to repeat here. Someone said, how do we deal with arguments or disagreements?
Yeah, the short answer is we talk it out. We talk until it's resolved.
We don't really argue.
Yeah, oh yeah, that as well. Like, we don't argue. We have discussions. And we have had a few discussions where we didn't agree on something, but then we just we continue to talk about it and see it from the other person's point of view until we get to some kind of agreement. But we've never had an argument in the sense of where we raise our voice or yell or curse or anything like that. Like, I don't think that will ever happen with us.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nah, and that would feel really weird to me.
Yeah.
Because I noticed with you and I, in the first a year where we just talked, I never saw a temper from you. I never saw you have a short fuse and blow up and become like a Jekyll and Hyde. I'm more calm than you, yeah, but you're not like a volatile personality. You're very predictable. I've
It's
seen
because I have a male brain, babe. Yeah.
But yeah, we like working things out, and it would seem very weird if one of us would just kind of be emotional and like kind of just go off.
Yeah, especially now after we've known each other for a while.
Can you imagine me just flipping out and yelling at you and not listening to you? I don't care.
No, that would be so weird. That would be like, what the fuck?
Didn't we see it in a movie last night? All right, it was for a movie. They exaggerated. There was this argument between a couple. We were watching a horror movie, and he.
Oh yeah, didn't she hit him or something?
No. He was. She was asking him what's going on. She was tearing, and then he just basically wanted to avoid the subject and put her down, and like.
I'm not your father.
Yeah, I'm not your father, or something. Like he just went into real like sticking the knife in. Is like,
Yeah.
whoa. Anyway.
That was the movie Shudder, by the way.
Yeah.
I watched yesterday. Look, Karu, when can we see Steph and Bob fighting over Baby Yoda?
Why don't you show them?
I'll show you. If I can get out of here. Look at that.
Yeah. When you first met me, you were like adamant that you hated Star Wars.
I didn't hate it, but I just always thought that's something for guys. I'm not going to be into it, so I never really watched it. I think I only watched one, the one with Natalie Portman, but that was because I thought she was really beautiful. But like a few months ago, we watched the Mandalorian series, and I loved it. That was really good. Was
it because of the cuteness of that? Do you think that helped you like it?
Also the actor, like the Mandalorian himself, I thought that was a really good series. And after that, I actually also watched a few of the Star Wars movies. Yeah, and they were fine. Yeah.
Do you think it's your male brain helped you appreciate Star Wars?
No, I think it was the Mandalorian and this little green creature here definitely helped. Yeah, he's cute.
Hi, Sylvia. You seem like a lovely couple. Congrats. Are you still in the honeymoon period?
Hopefully forever. Well, I don't think we're in the honeymoon period anymore.
Yeah, I think the first year of being married, maybe, and the first year and a half of living together, maybe.
You know what I actually think, and this is really weird, but I actually think we kind of missed the honeymoon period. Because when we got to know each other online, we got to know each other, that was like a year and a half that we weren't able to see each other. So for a year and a half, we got to know each other online via Skype and email.
Mm-hmm.
But we never
voice
really
chat and stuff.
We never really got to have the honeymoon period like together, actually seeing each other. Because when we finally met each other, we already had like talked and seen each other online. So it's almost like we kind of missed the honeymoon period in a way.
This is the difficult thing more and more as I get older and you listen to all these people having structural talks about relationships and how they should work and what works and what doesn't, what's a red flag, what's a green flag. If you need to have this much time and this is the honeymoon and this is that, if she does this or doesn't do this, then it's like every relationship isn't a perfect like A, B, C, D with exactly the same time frame and exactly the same red or green, you know what I mean? Ours is like very odd. But the point is to know yourself, what you want, and those milestones when they're right for you. Like it's not a blueprint. It's you have to trust yourself and know how to think your way through it. You know? So yeah, we did kind of miss the honeymoon period a little bit. But also the getting to know the personality, we intensely got to know that just because we only had talking. We didn't have anything else. We didn't have anything except for talking in each other's personalities.
Yeah. But we still kind of like still the first time that you came to Holland, those 2 weeks, that was still kind of like a honeymoon period. Yeah, when we first met and spent 2 weeks together, that was still like kind of honeymoonish, I would say.
Yeah, that was finally being able to kind of really date the person and touch them. But there wasn't really a big shock. You've talked about this in the video where it took you a few hours to get used to me as a physical person in front of you and not just on the screen, but I wasn't a different person. And the person you get to know in the honeymoon period, I think all of that was pretty much, actually, I think all of it was done just via talking. We just got used to being around each other, and that was like an extra level, but the personality was locked in.
Yeah, it was very interesting the way that we got together.
And it's really hard when people ask you, what advice can you give? I find it very hard to give advice given what happened between us. I can only offer advice about how I was thinking, where I was at, and what choices I made, but I can't actually give you practical advice about what we did when we did it. It was
advice about what specifically?
Relationships. Like, what advice would you give to other people wanting to find a partner, or you guys worked out, how can I, what can you give me to benefit?
I think the biggest advice actually is to know yourself really well and to know what you want and what you don't want, and then to be honest and open with the other person. And because everything else you can't really control. So be honest and control what you can control and just go for what you want. But you need to know what you want first.
Yeah, what kind of person you are. Look, if you're scared and hiding and making excuses, no one's going to help you because you're going to just keep making excuses and you're not going to be honest with yourself. You've always been direct. You've always... Me, I learned to be better and better and get good with myself as I got older. You did that very early on because of your character and a bit of being Dutch and being direct. So I think everyone's different and people don't want to hear that answer. Whenever you say everyone's different and you really need to think your situations, like, that's not an answer. I want a 3-step program, you know? Karu says, what was the biggest challenge you had to face together, and would you handle it differently if something similar happened again?
Oh, I know what that is. No. The social aspect.
If you did that sooner.
No, I'm saying that was our biggest challenge. And we've worked through that a lot. Yeah, like the biggest challenge when I first got here, I don't know how personal I can get, but it was basically that you were a bit more social than I was.
Yep.
And then you wanted to go out to meet some people. And
family.
And I don't really have a need for that nearly as much as you.
You came for me, and you really, even with your family back in Holland, you saw them maybe once a month or every couple of months. You didn't really.
Yeah, I think so. In Holland, I'm very, very close with my family, and I have a good relationship with them. But we don't really. I didn't need to see them as often as you see your family, and so when I came here, you saw your family a lot more than I was used to, and I didn't really have a need for that. And because I'm not social, I just wanted to stay home with him. So we had a few discussions about that, and where we came up with a few strategies. Like, I don't like being surprised. So, he would always let me know in advance when we would go, and then that would help. But that was definitely something we struggled through. We struggled with for a while, but that's gotten better over these 2 years.
And that's nothing to do between us. It was like an external thing that was attached to, like, it's something that's part of me. And so I've always been used to, because I've been living on my own. And that's an example of us having to accommodate each other, being together. Because of me living on my own, I was fine whenever anyone called. I could pause what I'm doing. It's like, oh, sure, let's catch up. Yeah. Whereas when you're in a headspace and you're doing something, when someone surprises you, you need a lot of time to readjust and finish what you're doing. You feel like you're being interrupted.
Yeah, but this is really a good example where I really adjusted a little bit and kind of grew from that experience, you know, just by realizing that I may not want to go, but it's obviously his family, it's important to him. So here, yes, it's very fair that I need to adjust. So then, you know, over the months and over the years, I've adjusted, and then kind of the compromise that we made is that he tries to always let me know in advance.
Yep.
So I'm not surprised. And then that's really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's there's always going to be an adjustment, as long as you talk, and again with both of us, we both care about our marriage, our relationship, each other. It's not just about, well, I need this and you need to do what I say exactly the way I want. Like, we want to meet each other and compromise and meet each other part way because we care about the other person. But it can't just be, I sit here in my male frame and you have to do everything. And then you're defensive and like, well, okay, then I'm going to do everything I want to do. And you play this tug of war between each other, which, like, you're supposed to be bringing each other closer. You're supposed to be living here, not living apart and trying to kind of just give each other crumbs.
Yeah. But I think that's also an example of, if you really love each other, then you will make those adjustments because you love the other person. You know, because if I hadn't been as serious with you, then I might have not done it, adjusted that part of me, because that did take an adjustment for me to kind of accept that was something that's important to you. So that's just something I need to not think about and just do as a supportive wife, you know? So, but not everyone would have done that, I think, if the relationship...
but now even your attitude's even better. Like, you're in that context, you chose to relax and enjoy going if you could do it in a way that's more comfortable for you. And now you actually like it a lot more than before, because before you were resisting it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was kind of like a journey in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do enjoy it, because you have to ask yourself, okay, am I going to, like, torture myself here, or am I just going to... Because it's also a little bit of stubbornness, you know, because I've lived on my own for most of my life, and then now you have to adjust this part of yourself. It's also a bit of stubbornness that comes in. But you have to ask yourself, I could also just try to have fun with this situation, you know? So, yeah.
Is it really as bad as you're convincing yourself it is?
Yeah, it's a lot of stubbornness, I feel like. And I've kind of let go of that a bit, especially over the last few months, I feel like. Yeah. So yeah, that was our biggest struggle.
This is for you.
What does Stephanie think of Australian culture? Was a big adjustment needed? How often do you plan going back to Europe to visit? What do I think Australian culture? I don't know. What do I think of Australian culture? I've really had to get used to... what did they say? How are you going?
How you going?
I've really had to get used to, whenever people greet each other, they say hi or good morning, and then how are you or how are you going? That's very different in Holland. We just say hi or good morning. We don't ask people, how are you? That's more like personal, like you're starting a personal conversation with someone. And here people use how are you or how are you going, just as they would use hi or good morning.
I've heard that same thing. I think it's a very Western thing. It's an American, Australian, maybe even an English thing. I've heard it from people in Europe especially, where it's almost like too personal a question. You're not really asking how are you, and it's also too personal for you to ask me. You're really just saying hello. Yeah.
But it's also confusing because now at work, sometimes, usually I kind of just say it back. But then you're like, yeah, I'm good. Like, what are you supposed to... It's just weird.
They're not asking you honestly, because if you're not doing well, oh, how are you? And you say, oh, well, let me tell you.
Yeah, let me get out my diary and...
And then they're going to say in their head, well, I was just being polite.
Yeah.
Like, well, why did you ask that question? You should have just said good morning or hello. So I get it, but I think it's just become a colloquial thing.
Yeah. But it hasn't been a big adjustment at all. Like, obviously people in Holland are more direct, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. It hasn't been a big adjustment at all. No.
How often do you plan to go back to Europe?
Well, last year we went back to Holland for my sister's wedding. And in December we are going to Spain for my parents' 40-year anniversary.
They moved to Spain.
Yeah, my parents moved to Spain, from Holland to Spain. So all the family is going to visit Spain in December for a few weeks.
And then after that, we don't know when we'll go back again. It might be a couple of years.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, yeah, but I've definitely traveled a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah, to Holland, yeah.
Because you couldn't travel.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing I noticed. Like when with you, I wasn't a traveler, and I'm always like very aware of fairness and like, you know, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? Even in the past, other relationships, people. But with you, it was just a very automatic decision to go and see you the first time, second time, and then you coming here. Everything was as was said. Everything you said you do. Everything I said I do. There was not one point where the other person was like, I don't know, or can we slow down, or I'm not sure about this. It was all yes, 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 yes. And no one, I've never felt like you or I have contradicted each other.
You know something else? When I could finally come to Australia, I remember really appreciating that you came to Holland twice before.
Yeah.
Because of the journey. Because it's a very long journey. 2 planes. And I was thinking, wow, he did this twice. Yeah.
I don't mind traveling. This is the one thing, even here in Australia, you travel a fair bit. The roads are really wide and it takes longer to get to places. So for me, driving an hour isn't a big deal. Whereas in Europe, it's like you can drive through 2 countries or something, you know. It's a big deal. And I noticed here when I was dating and people were like looking for someone local, it's like, you live 15 minutes away. It's a bit too far for me. And I'm like, what? It's really silly. So I think distance, I didn't mind, even not being a traveler, I didn't mind it as much. Although the last time we traveled was really grueling. I really didn't enjoy the last time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, coming back really knocked me out.
Yeah, I like flying.
I don't like... I appreciate traveling, but I'm not a big fan of sitting in the plane for 24 hours or 20 hours.
That's very long.
Well, from Australia, because there's usually one stopover at least, because we're so far. It was the last one was like 14 hours from Melbourne to Dubai. And then like 7 hours from Dubai to wherever.
Yeah, but not one plane ride. That's like 20 hours.
All up, the plane ride all up is about 20 hours. And then like a 2 to 3 hour stopover at an airport or something. Anyway, any last questions or comments? I think we'll wrap it up. We've been going for nearly an hour and 40 minutes.
I remember on your live stream on your channel, when we got to the end, I wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
Because I was finally relaxed and I was having fun.
Yeah. How do you feel now?
Good. I'm a little bit cold.
Told you. See? If I didn't tell you to bring that along.
That happens so often that you're like, oh, babe, you should do this. And I'm like, but I don't really want to. And then like I find out that you were right. And I should have done it.
About a good many things.
Yeah. Like now I got my teddy bear.
All right. I hope you enjoyed our first live stream Q&A. Many more to come. We'll try and do these semi-regularly if we can.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fun.
So, subscribe, join the channel, and we'll post up another shout out for comments. And we'll see you in the next stream. And enjoy your weekend. It's Saturday morning here for us. So I think for the US it would be Friday night, and it would be Saturday morning for Europe. All right. Ciao, goodbye. Say goodbye in Dutch.
Doei.
All right, guys and girls. This was a good one. We'll catch you in the next one. All right. Bye.